A lot of theories have risen up, both in the past and in the present, in regards to the origin of the Fulani people, also known as Fulbe or Fula. Now, the Fulani people have been seen as mysterious because they are nomadic herders who do not have a specific homeland tied to their ancestry. Unlike the Mongols, who are also nomadic herders, they go around with their cattle, their yaks, and their camels. Yet, they are known to inhabit a specific region as their ancestral homeland, like Mongolia, the country, Inner Mongolia in China, and the various regions in Russia that are inhabited by the Mongolic-speaking people. However, the Fulani people do not really have a home where they can trace their ancestry to and say this is where we originally come from. And this have led many people, anthropologists, historians, and even pseudo-anthropologists, to conclude that the Fulani people are from Egypt. Some even say Morocco, and some say as far east as even Jordan and Persia. But where exactly these people come from? Because sometimes people wonder where they come from, and then they come up with different stories in regards to their origin. Now, for us to understand, let us go back in time to Africa. Now, Africa as of 5,000 years ago, specifically the Sahara region of Africa, wasn't as dry as it is today. It was greener, it had trees, it had plants, it had even giraffes, elephants, and many animals you find in tropical Africa as of today, like animals you find in safari in Kenya and Tanzania and Namibia. All of these animals were in the Sahara, and in fact, archaeologists have found skeletons of whales and sharks in the middle of the Sahara. So that tells you that there was once a thriving life in the Sahara region before the modern time. Even some of it is recorded on wall paintings. You can check them up yourselves in Algeria, in Libya, northern Mali, Niger Republic, and even Egypt. You find many cave paintings of our primitive ancient ancestors depicting all this flora and fauna. Now, as of between the 5,000 and 4,000 years before present, the Sahara began to dry up due to some shifts in the Earth's rotation. The Earth, like a globe, tilted, and that tilt caused some parts to become more drier and some parts to become much wetter. And also due to the ice age and all that stuff, the climate kept on changing. And then it affected the overall climate of the Sahara, and Sahara began to dry up. So my own opinion, my own theory, and this is also backed by science and by history, there were people living in Sahara. Now, we all know the history of the Bantu expansion. The Bantu people migrated out of West Africa. But have you ever wondered what made them to migrate out of West Africa? It was this, simple. The Sahara began to dry up. People from the Sahara began to move southward. For example, my ancestors were known as the Yala people in Cross River States. And Yala are just a segment of the Doma people. The Doma people, to the Pacific, once lived somewhere around northern Nigeria, not even in Benue. Now the Domas are in Benue and Nasarawa State. But based on what I've searched and what I've traced far back, like about 1,000 years ago, we're living in what is now known as Gombe or Taraba State, around that axis of the upper Benue Valley. Now we are in the lower Benue Valley. So it tells you how far we have migrated. And almost every ethnic group in Nigeria has a migration history of how they migrated southward, not eastward or westward, but southward most of the time. So now, this tells you that most of the ethnic groups began to migrate. But for some reason, the Fulani people didn't migrate and absorb and claim a land for their own. Maybe they were too late to migrate, or I don't really know what happened. But then, at some point, they migrated to the Senegambian region. Now, according to anthropology, Fulani people are Afro-Asiatic by genetics, but by linguistics, they are Niger-Congo. But in contrast, the Hausa people are Afro-Asiatics by linguistics, but they are Niger-Congo by genetics and appearance. So, for example, an average Fulani person, not all of them do, but some of them have aquiline or pointed nose, wavy or almost straight hair, brown or even yellow fair skin. Some of them are also black as well, darker skin than I am. And not all of them have that wavy or curly hair. Some of them have regular afro hair. But regardless of that, in the area called Futaturo is a region in Senegal, about, let me say, 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. the Fulani people began to intermarry with the local Mandinka people, and then they formed the Tukola people. And the Tukola people are a mix of Fulani and the local West Africans. However, the larger Fulani people did not settle in the Senegambian region. They kept on migrating eastward from the Sahara. After migrating south, kept migrating east. So these Fulani people were speaking a different language before. As they migrated to the Senegambian region, they picked up a new language as a form of lingua franca, just the same way Germanic people migrated to England and they formed a new language that is different from Old English and had some Germanic inputs into it. So the Fulani people also adopted some languages from these people they met with. And in fact, the Fulani people are known to always adapt to their host community. So a Fulani that lives in Kwara will begin to speak Yoruba language like it's a Yoruba person. And at some point, may even begin to bear Yoruba names. And the Fulani that is living in Hausa land will begin to speak Hausa, just like a Hausa man, adopt many Hausa cultures. So that's one of the things that they do. And they also marry their daughters to the local community. And they marry the local community as well, as one of their ways of absorbing well into the community. Now, another theory as well that have been propagated very well in Nigeria, especially in the present time, is that the Fulani people originated from Futajalon. Now, you don't know where Futajalon is. Futajalon is a mountainous region in the country of Guinea, Guinea-Conakry. So there are like 3 Guineas in Africa: Guinea-Bissau, Equatorial Guinea, and Guinea-Conakry. Guinea-Conakry speak French, Guinea-Bissau speak Portuguese, and Equatorial Guinea speaks Spanish. There are also other Guineas as well. For example, New Guinea, that's the Eastern Hemisphere close to Australia. And there's also Guyana, which I think sounds like Guinea, but not really Guinea. So now, some Nigerians, for example, believe that Fulani people originated from Futajalon. But the truth is that Futajalon itself was not originally Fulani inhabitants. Starting from the earliest medieval period, the Fulani people began to migrate into Futajalon, which is a mountainous region. I would liken it to Plateau State in modern-day Nigeria. So it's a mountainous, high elevation, and then the Fulbe people began migrating to Futajalon, and then over time they kept on increasing in number until the year 1724, when there was a jihad by Karamoko Alpha. Now, the Futajalon region was originally inhabited by the Yalinke people. After replacing the Yalunka people with Fulani people, it became a hub for Islamic learning. Now, shortly after, in the year 1802, not up to 100 years later, Usman Dan Fodio went about his own jihad in the region that we now call Nigeria. He conquered the Hausa kingdoms, Sokoto, Kano, and kept on expanding, conquering other people until he was stopped by the Kanuris and the British. And what about the Fulani is that in most cases, wherever they find themselves, they try to adapt to the culture. So the only ones who would retain their distinct Fulani culture are those ones who are nomadic, who are still going around with the cattle and all of that. But those ones are settled down. They begin to dress like the local people. They begin to speak the language of the local people. They begin to intermarry with the local people. And like I said earlier, the Fulani people speak a Niger-Congo language. Even by genetics, they are closer to Afroasiatic, like the Amazigh and the Berbers. So just tells you how the Fulani people may have not been speaking the original Fulani language, may have spoken another language, and languages evolve according to society's standard or society's need. So just like the British people today now speak modern English, if we had gone back, let me say 500, 1,000 years ago, they spoke a much more different language compared to what they speak today. So that could also be the case for the Fulbe people. After migrating and settling down with people, they began to adopt. And I don't see any problem with Fulani people, though in Nigeria, some people see them as problematic or as troublemakers or as people going out to fight. But then, every country in West Africa actually has a population of Fulani people. So it's more of a matter of political manipulation in Nigeria. So for example, the Fulani people in Guinea or in Senegal or Liberia are not wreaking havoc like the way they do in Nigeria. is because people brought up some of this political ideology and separationism that has rigged our society and now makes it to be in shambles today. So you'll find a lot of good Fulani people, you'll find a lot of bad Fulani people, just like every other ethnic group. Although Fulani are majority Muslim, I'll say by 90% at least. But we can't say 90% exactly because some of them still practice animism or a syncretism of Islam and animism, and others practice Christianity. There are actually few Christian Fulanis in Nigeria, even though they go around and publicizing their faith. So the problem is not the ethnicity, but the problem is those people who try to use the ethnic diversity to divide Nigeria. And not just Nigeria, every other country of the world. So once there is this sense of I do not belong here, then there is bound to be a problem in the country. So I hope this gives some clarity on the origin of the Fulani people, which according to my perspective, they originated from the Sahara. There are many civilizations in the Sahara, and there are many proofs showing that there were civilizations in the Sahara before the modern time. But the drying up of the Sahara caused massive migration. Even the Songhai people and the Soninke people were the founders of the Ghana Empire. After the Sahara dried, some of them became nomadic, like the Soninke Wangara, who went around trading in gold, leather, metalworks, and all of that. So West Africa has a rich history. If only we look deeper, we understand each other much better. Thank you and see you in my next video.